Hi, so you're welcome to part two of the webinar Personal Branding for Influence, Impact, and Fame. Of course, I remain Maple Dappa, your co-traveler. The next thing we're going to look at, flowing from the part one, is the most powerful thing that I ever did to take charge of my life, to take charge of my story. The most powerful thing I ever did with regards to my personal brand. It's titled my personal mission statement. And it's a story that I just want to share. Some years ago, I attended a training by an organization called Leap Africa. And in the course of that training, we had a particular module titled Crafting Your Personal Mission Statement. While that module was going on, at some point, the facilitator asked us to close our eyes and it took us on a journey of imagination that I'll never forget. He asked us to close our eyes and he said nothing for a while. Our eyes were all closed and we're wondering what was about to happen, what was going on. What I discovered thinking about it in retrospect was that for the few minutes that he said nothing, he just wanted our mind to finish roaming so that we can focus. He said to us that he was taking us on a journey to attend the funeral of a dear one who had passed. And so he asked us to imagine ourselves getting ready at home to attend the funeral, from taking our bath to going to the wardrobe and picking the clothes to wear. There was a young person who had passed, so we're most likely going to be dressed in black. So asked us to imagine wearing the dress, wearing the clothes, and all that, getting dressed up, in other words, and setting out for the funeral venue. A car was already waiting to take us there. We step into the car and make our way through the city down to the very cathedral where the funeral service was taking place. When we arrived the venue, of course, this was each of us imagining on our own. So it was not as though we're going for the funeral as a group. So let me use myself as the reference here. So when I arrived at the venue, he asked me, to take a look around, see all the people around in the premises where the funeral service was taking place. Some of them seated all by themselves, lost in thoughts. Some flipping through the pages of the funeral brochure. Some standing by the corner having conversations. And then he asked me to imagine walking right into the auditorium itself. Immediately I stepped at the door. It was filled to the brim. All the way to my left, people sat. To the right, people sat in sober mood. And I started walking down the aisle. And up there laid the casket. And he asked me to imagine walking all the way down to the casket. I did. In my imagination, I walked all the way to the casket and stood right there. He said, bend your head, take a look at the face of the person in the casket. I did. Said, that's you. You just attended your own funeral. Oh, think about it. All of these people seated, what would they be saying about you? The things they have been saying, the tributes written, are they true of you? Wow. Wow. In fact, think about it. If it was your own funeral for real, Would you even have an auditorium that's filled to the capacity to the point that there are people living outside sitting on the floor? Would you? Would you have lived such a fantastic, wonderful life? He asks us to imagine as preparation for us to write our own personal mission statement. What an experience I will never forget. So by the time we opened our eyes, of course, he had taught us how to write a personal mission statement and all. So this was the point we were supposed to start writing our own. So he took us through this first. Um, Concerning personal mission statements, there's something I'm going to be doing in November, and I'm actually going to teach it. You get more details in the part three of this video of this webinar. Yeah, so we wrote, and he told us the first one we wrote it to fulfill the classwork task, but that we were going to write it again at our own time in our own quiet moment. And he was right. When we read what we wrote in class, of course, there was need to edit it later on. I edited mine. It was in 2008, and ever since till today, I have not had the need to edit it again. I'm going to share that mission statement that I wrote in 2008. I'll share it with us for as many that will join what is coming up in November, which you'll find out soon. I'm going to share that personal mission statement with us. It's such a powerful thing, right? For you to take charge. It's one of the ways for those who may be asking, so, okay, I've heard what you're saying, but how exactly do I move from being an unconscious personal brand to being a personal conscious brand? Craft a personal mission statement and start living by it. That's one very simple, powerful answer I can give to you. The whole idea of personal branding is about living out your autobiography as life unfolds each day. So the idea for the personal mission statement and that imagination exercise was not for us to foresee or to look forward to our death. I mean, we're still young people and have a whole lot of years ahead of us. But it was to bring us to that place that whatever it is that we would love for people to say about us at our funeral, whatever we would want people to write about us at our funeral, we're still very much alive. Let's make it real. Let's live that life. And that's what personal branding is about, living out your autobiography as life unfolds each day. So, how do you make it happen? I've answered that just moments ago, but I'm still going to answer that again from other perspective. Remember, we've discussed in the part one of this webinar that personal branding is about marking yourself, right? That branding rather is about marking. So personal branding is about marking yourself. What are the characteristics, the attributes, the features that you want to use to define yourself, that you want to become? And so over time, that's what people know you for. That becomes your personal brand. You've got to mark yourself. You just have to mark yourself. And I'm going to share with us some essential marks of a personal brand. So when I say mark yourself, you may also be wondering, so how do I mark myself? I want to answer that, and I'm going to be sharing some practical tips with you that you could use to mark yourself. Please follow very closely. Mark yourself with a functional world view. Many years ago, over 15 years ago, I read the book by a Nigerian, Professor Emma S. Etug. He's been living in the US for over 30 years at the time. So that should be about over 45 years now, if I'm not mistaken. The book was titled Recipe for Success. I think 21 indisputable elements for success or so. I can't remember the exact title anymore. But one of the things, if not even the first thing he wrote in that book, it's not a regular motivational book. It's not a motivational book per se. It's actually more of a philosophical book, but so powerful and thought provoking and puts things into perspective with regards to our quest for success. And the first thing that he said in that book, if I remember correctly, but let me just say one of the things he talked about in the book was a functional worldview. That was the very first time I was hearing the word worldview. I never knew what it was, but I've lived my life all the way to that point. And what I got to realize from that book and even studying about worldview years later is the fact that we always have a worldview. Whether we realize it or not, we have a worldview that informs our outlook towards life, our outlook towards situation, that even informs our behavior, the way we behave and respond towards certain things in life is a function of our worldview. It's a lens that we all wear. Whether we wear that lens consciously ourselves, or whether somebody puts that lens on our eyes, the lens is always there for every single one of us. And so, if you're going to become a conscious personal brand, you have to mark yourself with a functional worldview. What a functional worldview simply means is that the worldview is coherent. You hold on to a worldview that is coherent, that's holistic and coherent, which means that you are giving more thought to how your belief systems work in harmony. A dysfunctional worldview is a case where your belief systems are not in harmony. So you believe one thing in one area, and then that same logic does not apply in that area of your life. That's a dysfunctional worldview. So have a functional worldview. I just share a few things that should help put this into perspective. Now, there are people who spend money recklessly with no much thought for tomorrow. We see them a lot in our life. It could even be us. There is a worldview, it's a worldview that informs that behavior of them spending money to enjoy today without any thought for tomorrow. But you see, on another hand, there are also those who save for tomorrow, who give so much thought to tomorrow that they fail to live today, they fail to enjoy today. So they subject themselves to scarcity and all of that, keeping their resources for tomorrow. That is also informed by a worldview. Yet there are also those who save today, who save for tomorrow, who take good thought for tomorrow, who also enjoy today. However, when it comes to being generous towards others, they don't want to hear that. They are not inclined to that. That is also informed by a worldview. This whole worldview thing is that complex, is that crucial. So sometimes the frustrations you feel with certain persons and the things you complain about is just a function of the worldview that they hold on to. So what you are up against is not even that person, it's their worldview. If you succeed in changing their worldview, changing their mindset, the way they think about a particular subject matter, a particular issue, then they will change their behavior and their conduct as well too. But the big question is, will you be able to do that? Will you be able to change their thinking, change their worldview? There are people who do the right things for the wrong reasons. It's also informed by a worldview. So some people give you a gift, and they give you that gift because there's a favor they want to ask in return. And if you don't grant that favor, they get offended that why won't you grant that favor even after they gave you a gift? Which means from the onset, why they were giving you that gift, they already had an ulterior motive. It's a worldview that informs that because they do not realize that a gift is voluntary, it was not asked for. And so you cannot give a gift and then now place the burden of someone, what they call it, reciprocating that favor or that gift. That's why there is a saying of us being mindful of Greek gifts. Sometimes you want to be mindful of the gift that you receive because there is usually a demand coming after the gift. It's a worldview that informs that. Another perspective to look at it again is people who feel remorse for doing bad and wanting a relationship restored. So when you do wrong in a relationship, you feel remorse, you want the relationship to be restored. It's a worldview that informs that. While there are also those who don't care if the relationship is totally destroyed, so long as they get what they want or so long as they win the argument. All of these things are informed by worldviews, and we know how it plays out in our own individual lives. The focus here is for us to review these things in our own lives, question these things, examine our own selves, and put things into perspective if we're indeed going to emerge as powerful personal brands. Worldviews move us from mere opinions to convictions, So the things that we believe and hold on to dearly are not just random opinions. They are things that we've actually thought about, and we've come to that place of being convinced, that that is our stance on the matter. If you are not scrutinizing the beliefs that you hold on so dearly to, you will be living out the ideologies others have sold to you subconsciously. Whether it's via the books you read, whether it's via the people you follow on social media, the movies you watch, the music you listen to, and so on. The voices you listen to, and so on. You would have no stand of your own actually, but you just be living out the ideologies others have sent to you. So think about it, right? Why are you a Christian? Why are you atheist? Why are you feminist? Why are you socialist? Why are you capitalist? Why are you stingy? Why are you generous? Whatever it is that you are, we say it with so much pride. I am this, I am that, I can never. The question, what worldview helps you to do is to question why. That why takes you to the place of the original convictions and belief system that you hold so that you can truly examine it. For me, I hold on to a Christian worldview. And the Christian worldview is, primarily about, evil versus good. But essentially, in the pragmatic sense, it's actually about doing all things to the glory of God. That's how I live out that Christian worldview. It doesn't make me perfect. I don't keep to everything the Bible say. I falter a great deal. But you see, because of I hold on to that Christian worldview, even in the areas where I falter, where I fail, I acknowledge it that in this area I have failed, in this area I have failed, I'm not doing well. But a person who doesn't hold on to a Christian worldview will not even agree that what that person has done is wrong. You won't admit your wrongdoing. It takes holding a Christian worldview to even admit wrongdoing in the first place. So we need to examine, our views. Mark yourself with a functional worldview. I want to believe that all of the insights I've shared so far helps, with this. The next is mark yourself with the right knowledge. What kind of brand do you want to build? It's not going to happen by mere wishful thinking. You will need to acquire as much knowledge as possible that will help you to become that person you really want to be. Remember the question, who am I? Who do I want to be known as? It also requires you to acquire knowledge. If you want to be known as a great business person, then please by all means read business books, take business courses, seek business mentorship, get the right knowledge, be marked with the right knowledge. It's not every knowledge that you need. There are some links I see, I close it because I don't need that information. I don't want to read it. That's going to be me in putting in time I can never redeem into something I don't need. Mark yourself with the right knowledge. Mark yourself with the right friends. Revisit your friends list, redefine your friendships, categorize your friendships. This one is friends for what? This one is friend for what? Where does this friendship belong? What does this friendship do for me? What value does it bring to me? What value do I have to offer it? And that's another thing again to that worldview does. It helps you to think both ways. You're not only thinking in terms of what you are gaining from the friendship, you're also thinking in terms of what you are offering to the friendship. But mark yourself with the right friends, mark yourself with the right attitude. Sometimes what is limiting us from achieving better success in life, from making progress in life, is because we have attitudinal issues that we've refused to fix, that we've refused to work on, even when we've gotten repeated feedback on that issue from different people. Becoming a personal brand means that you're willing, you're flexible to work on yourself. And one of the things that you would have to do is to mark yourself with the right attitude, mark yourself with the right appearance, become more conscious of looking good, appearing the right way. Know the kind of hairstyle that fits you, know the kind of clothing that fits you, the kind of shoes that gives you a good, great look. If you need to do a little bit of exercise also to put your body in good shape so that you look good, mark yourself with the right appearance. If you need to eat in a more healthy manner as well too, so that it also adds to your appearance, please by all means mark yourself with the right appearance because your appearance is part of the package, it's part of your personal brand. Mark yourself with the right mindset. Some of us can't hold conversations with people who hold an opposing view from us. And that's one of the things about this worldview thing. You would always meet people who hold on to different worldviews. And you can't have everybody on your side. You can't convert everybody to holding the same worldview. I can't get everybody to hold on to a Christian worldview. Even if within Christians, Christians also have all kind of worldviews mixed up with their Christian worldview, and that is life for you. But can you get along with business, with work, with in your neighborhood, with people? You just have to. You just have to, and it comes with your mindset. Are you willing to unlearn, to relearn? Are you willing to admit that you don't know it all? All of these things has to do with your mindset. So mark yourself with the right mindset. So it makes you become more pleasurable. People look forward to meeting you. People enjoy having conversations with you. If you have a toxic mindset, if you have a repulsive mindset, it will affect your personal brand. Okay. Mark yourself with the right values and principles. You can't live a life of no values, no principles, anything goes. At some point, you need to have the values and principles that define your life. Stand by it, stick to it. Be known for those values, be known for those principles. They are the very pillars of your personal brand. Mark yourself, my friends, my co travelers, to take charge of your story, to take charge of your life. Mark yourself. Mark yourself. These are just examples I have given, but there are so many other ways you can mark yourself. You know best. You know best what suits your own situation, your own life, but mark yourself. As I begin to close this session, I just want to say to us that when you leave your brand at the mercy of others, you give them power over you. When you leave your brand at the mercy of others, you give them power over you. Taking charge of your brand returns the power to you. And that's what I'm calling you to do today through this webinar, to take charge of your brand, to return the power back to yourself. So the big question is, as you do that and you become a powerful brand, or you begin to see the force that you are as a brand, what are you going to use that powerful brand for? It cannot be idle. It has to be utilized. What are you going to use it for? So that brings us to personal branding for impact. Personal branding for impact is actually about your work, because you must be working. As a personal brand, you cannot be idle. You must be working. And your work can be in different forms. It could be in terms of you being a career person, it may be in terms of you being an entrepreneur, you being a volunteer, you being a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home dad, whatever the circumstance or the situation is in your own life. But there is some sort of work that you must be doing as a personal brand. You should no longer do your job as ordinary. You have to start doing that work with the consciousness that you're a personal brand. And that work is like a ministry for you. That work is one of the ways you are expressing your personal brand. Remember, the question was asked, who am I? How do I want to be known? Then the question was also asked, how do I want to express myself? Work is one of the ways that you can also express your personal brand, how you approach your work. But working is not enough. You must have the substance and the content that makes you, in other words, the competence that makes you to do that work with effectiveness, with efficiency. So whatever training, whatever grooming, whatever mentorship that you need to get that will help you to be substantial, to have the right content for that work, give yourself to it. Be solid. Whatever you choose to do, become the best at it. That's the whole idea of personal brand. If you want to be a carpenter, please by all means reach for the very best. Be one of the best known carpenters in town. That's the idea of personal branding. And that's what substance and content here is about. It cannot just be verbal, it cannot just be bragging. The substance must also be there to back up your claims. "Oh, I'm the best, you know. You just cannot say I'm the best and you become the best. You must have the substance to back up that claim as well, too. And then you must be giving thought to how your work affects lives, businesses, organizations, or society. If you're a nurse, when people come around your clinic, your hospital, how do you make them feel? How does your work as a nurse impact their life? Does it give them hope? Does it make them feel cared for? Or it makes them irritable? It makes them, impatient to just want to be discharged and leave because you're toxic towards them? So, whatever job that you do, you must be asking yourself, how are you of impact? The story is told of the janitor at the NASA center in the US when they were preparing to take a man to the moon, and the president had asked him, "What are you doing?" He did not just say, "I'm a janitor, I'm cleaning the floor." It says, I am helping to put a man on the moon. So even that janitor understands the place of his work in the broad scheme of things. Nobody can undermine your work unless you undermine it first. Nobody can look down on your work unless you already look down on the work yourself. If you can do that work with grace, with a healthy self-esteem, people will also get to respect that job. It's how you carry yourself doing that job. That's why you have to be careful the way you complain about your work. The more you complain about your work, you are positioning yourself that way, and people won't have the regard for both you and the work. You think it's only the work. No, the disregard will extend from disregard for the work and even to you. That's personal branding for impact. Personal branding for influence, right? Personal branding for influence. It has to do with your leadership. The more you are emerging as a powerful personal brand, you are becoming a leader. There are people you are beginning to influence. They want to follow your footsteps. They want to follow your ways. They want to do as you do. They want to do what they see you do. They want to speak like you, look like you, dress like you. What that means is that you are beginning to now have a voice. And once you are beginning to have a voice, you must also have a story, a message for that voice. Otherwise, that voice will just be jumping from one thread or to another on social media, from one gossip to another. But once you know what your story is, what your message is, you begin to focus your voice more on that. And personal branding for influence also gives a direction to your tribe. Your tribe just simply means the group of people who follow you, those who, your personal brand inspires and is leading them. They definitely want a sense of direction. So personal branding for influence gives them that sense of direction. Personal branding for fame. Personal branding for fame. It is about your dominance, because if you're good, you're good, and you want to be dominating in that space. If you're a carpenter, you want to be dominating in that space. You're a doctor, an orthopedic surgeon, or a pediatrician, you want to be able to establish yourself clearly in that space. As a personal brand, you are conscious of establishing your dominance, not from the point of arrogance or pride, but from the point of how good you are, that you are the reference point. You are the number one recommendation people make. That's what dominance in this context means. Foremost, personal branding for influence also has to do with visibility and traction. The more you build your personal brand, the more you also have to pay attention to being visible. People need to know that you're there. You cannot have light and people are struggling in darkness with darkness. Shine your light for them to find their way. And that's what personal branding for fame is also about. It's about being visible, right? Reaching out to more persons out there, having traction. How many lives have you touched? How many persons have you been able to reach out to? Personal branding for influence helps to spread your message. For fame, rather, helps to spread your message farther. That's the whole idea of evangelism. You want to spread it as far as possible. You want to make your product famous. You want to make your message famous. That's the whole idea. And there is nothing wrong about fame at all in that sense, because it simply means that the impact is going wider. All right. Now, it's important to mention that fame could be accidental, intentional, or eventual. Accidental means you were not looking forward to it, you didn't see it coming, but suddenly you find yourself famous. When it happens, if it happens, you want to be able to harness it, make the most of it. Or it could be intentional. Intentional is you actively, set out to become famous. So you do things that increases your chances of being famous. While eventual is you did not necessarily set out to be famous. You were just doing something, doing it to the best of your ability, doing it in the best way you can, getting so known and prominent for it, and eventually you become famous for that. Not because you on your own you set out to be famous. And some examples, mostly for those of us who are Nigerian, because most of those following this webinar are Nigerian, so you can relate. An example of accidental fame. It's Jumoke, the bread seller, if you still remember, and then Happy Boys. I mean, purely accidental, and we can see how things played out with Jumoke. We can also see how things are playing out with Happy Boys, unless they are able to turn things around before they lose the fame. Then intentional, someone like Chef Daming, right, who haven't heard that someone had won the Guinness World Record for longest cooking hours, set out to also do hours almost immediately. So while the news and the fame of the other one was still in the air, she rode on it. It was done intentionally, and a lot of us got to know her. Of course, there is Bob Risky, who is a cross dresser, who's a cross dresser. So doing stuff like that and constantly being on social media gets you famous. So it was intentional. The comedian Mr. Funny, popularly known as Sabinus, as well too, because of the things that he says in his comedies repeatedly that people used to know him for. So all of those things, and of course, as a comedian, he also wanted to be famous. And of course, Pastor Jerry Eze, who runs NSPPD, what God cannot do does not exist. He stops prayers and asks people to share the links of the prayer and all that. So the idea of asking people to share the links and all that is to get the program famous. And then eventual Chef Hilda Bassi, who has a bit of intentional as well too by pushing for the Guinness World Record thing. But even without that, and even before that, she's actually been on that trajectory. She's been cooking to the point of hosting cooking classes and contesting in cooking competitions. So it's a journey she has been on, and so it was only natural that eventually she was going to be famous one way or the other. Apostle Joshua Selman, who's been preaching a whole lot. I find his messages quite sensational because he has things that he says that really, really triggers, people in certain ways and all that resonates with them, with his audience and all of that. So it was just a matter of time and he was going to become very famous to the point of using one of the largest auditoriums for an event and having it filled to capacity. And then, of course, my friend Emeka Nobis, who invited me to his birthday and had me speak on this same topic, personal branding for influence, impact, and fame. And that was what necessitated me repeating it as a webinar in this form. Yeah. And he's been writing for a very long time, doing a lot of stuff for a very long time. And he's also now getting to that point when he's becoming famous. His fame is rising. It's eventual. Eventually, he's actually going to be a lot more famous, traveling the world, holding conferences and the likes. Warren Buffett, and of course, Peter Obi, who has been sharing his thoughts with regards to what Nigeria could be as against what Nigeria is, and eventually got him all the way to the point of even being a presidential candidate in an election. I hope we've learned something. We've come to the end, but not the end of the webinar. So the end is actually going to come in part three of the video. And in part three of the video, I'm also going to be talking about what is happening, going to be happening in November so that you don't miss out. As a matter of fact, people have actually already started enrolling and I'm amazed. Okay, so you definitely don't want to miss out. I'll see you in part three of this webinar. Thank you.